So today I'm joined by our newly appointed Electrical Installation Safety Manager, Mr. Steven Devine. So Steven, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks very much, Richard. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with Electrical Safety First after quite an eventful year in my career. So as many probably know, I was with the IET for a little over 10 years, joined BEMA in January of this year, and fortunately a position came up at Electrical Safety First, which provided me the opportunity to do what I want to do for the industry. So here I am, and anything else you want to know?
From a personal point of view, it's exciting to have you on board and work with you. I know that we've collaborated over the years through teaching and learning to various industry events and things like that. But I never thought I'd have the opportunity to actually work together and try and address some of the, safety concerns within, modern electrical installations. So we've got a number of projects on currently, haven't we, in terms of RCDs, types of RCDs, DC earth leakage, PV investigations. We've got our annual installation safety event coming up next year, which I'm looking forward to. We've obviously got Amendment 4 to BS 7671. And for me, I'm looking forward to tapping into your brain a little bit in terms of the way that standards are put together and formed internationally and across Europe and the rest of the world, and how that kind of filters down into our standards. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know from the work that we've done with one another in committees and various different events, I've been embroiled in the international European and UK standardisation framework for over a decade now. So it's extremely important that us in this area of the industry that we're in have a good understanding of how these standards are developed from origin right through to application within the UK. And that can sometimes take up to 10 years, depending on how that's been developed at IEC level through Europe into the UK.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to bring my experience in that side of the industry into the team here, Electrical Safety First, and continue the good work we're doing across, the product side of the industry, but more in our remit in the installation side of the industry and influencing the development of standards and industry guidance.
So you're saying that we're going to go past Amendment 4. I thought that was it. I thought when we get to next year, there'll be no more versions of BS 7671. Are you saying then that we might get a new edition or a further amendment moving forward?
We're just touching the tip of the iceberg with the technology, the evolution, the way installations are going. I mean, if you look at international work that's going on at the moment, we have the prosumer installation, which is maturing quite a lot.
Yeah.
We have that in BS 7671 at the moment,
currently,
but there's a far more mature version of that that's been developed at IEC. Also, the integration of DC buses, so DC aspects to electrical installations. International European level, we've also got power over the Ethernet. So there's a never-ending stream of development and standards to try and keep pace with the technology and the emerging technologies and the way that we use those technologies.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I suppose some of it will be covered in Amendment 4, won't it? And I suppose that we'll be having a look at some of those changes as and when we know what's coming in Amendment 4 and how they affect or can affect safety,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know from the DPC, well, we know more than the DPC because we sit on the committees, but we can't talk about the nitty-gritty. Yeah. But we know from the DPC some of the considerations that were taken into account in the development for Amendment 4.
Yeah.
Now, by being involved with the international work and even just looking at what's visible and accessible from a public perspective internationally, we can have a level of reassurance of some of the content that was in the DPC that will follow through. Maybe not exactly as it was written in the DPC, but certainly the technical intent will be adopted into UK standards as per our requirements of Senelec. We're obligated to adopt the technical intent of the regulations that are developed in Senelec and bring those into the UK.
I mean, I've certainly, been exposed to a better understanding of how the standards are developed internationally and how they may be looked at in 7671. But from a charity point of view, obviously myself and David sit on the subcommittees, but yourself will sit on the main committee, won't you, on JPEL? So what kind of work will that involve for yourself and how will you represent electrical safety first at that level, at JPEL level?
So at the JPEL level, it's really, it's like a plenary. It's like an overview of the various different bits of work that are going on within the subcommittee. So if you like the technical structure and development of BS 7671 and the review of those international documents, and that's an important thing to bear in mind, that, you know, the international documents aren't just in the control of somebody beyond our reach. We actually influence them.
Right.
But the work that goes on in the subcommittees generally feeds up through JPEL 64 for approval. Now, there can be delegation of tasks to the subcommittees, but more often than not, JPEL 64 will have the final oversight of the work that's going on within those subcommittees, and help steer and manage the allocation of work, and deal with maybe more things that are on a policy matter in the running of the committees. If there's any concerns about the development of the work that's going on through Europe and IEC, because there have been some delays in the progress with the work that's gone on in IEC, and believe it or not, it's still a fallout from COVID. You know, when we hit COVID and everything went to remote meetings, there was an extreme slowdown of the development of those international standards. So we're still actually picking up the pace from the work that was delayed during that time.
Okay, so these standards are constantly developing all the time then? So,
yes.
You know, when we talk about Amendment 4, it's always going to evolve and keep evolving.
That's right. And at an international and European level, they don't develop at the same pace or the same sort of structure and method that we develop it in the UK.
Right.
You know, we're actually the envy of a lot of European countries because all of our requirements are in one book.
Right.
If you look at Europe and IEC and a lot of the countries within Europe, they split the requirements down into each of the sections, and charge a fortune for them as well. So it's actually quite a bargain for this book when you look at the work that goes into it. So those individual sections, and even broken down into individual parts of those sections, they're all being worked on at different rates through IEC and Senelec. So there's a constant turn of bits and pieces of the standard. And this is why BS 7671 has to be updated fairly regularly, every 3 to 4 years, because we need to keep pace with the changes that are going on.
Yeah, so currently on page 15 then, in Amendment 2 to the standard, obviously it lists some of those harmonised standards and IEC documents, doesn't it? So in theory then, if you was to buy all of these standards, it would cost you a lot more than what it would.
At this particular point in time, I don't know exactly, but I did price it up. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, and I think for the IEC suite of standards, it was coming in at about 5,000 or 6,000 euros, and it was slightly less for the harmonised documents for the European version.
Okay.
But what we've got to bear in mind is these harmonised documents are the basis for national standards. So each country will have their own version of these harmonised documents and have their own national requirements, as we do in the UK, that appear in the form of 200 numbers in the UK. So they're UK-only requirements. So the HDs are really for the Standards Development Committee, so they can access these so that they can develop their own national standard on the basis of the HDs. Okay,
and then obviously the year that it shows was the last year that was kind of developed.
That's correct, yeah. So the year that we have in here demonstrates when that was implemented into BS 7671. So you've got the publication date of the standard, and then you've got the implementation date into 7671 in most cases.
Okay. So for instance, 60364-4-41 is Chapter 41 essentially that appears in 7671.
That's correct, yes.
And that was last updated by the looks of that. Well, were implemented in 2011 and updated in 2015.
You're looking at 42. 41's just above it, yeah. So there was a 2007 version of the HD, and then it was amended in 2017.
Okay.
So the version that's been adopted into 7671 in 2018 plus amendment 2020.
Is that 2017 version?
That's correct.
And then, so when do these get reviewed, and when do they have maintenance on, and when do they get looked at, for instance?
Fairly periodically. So what happens at IEC level, once a document has been completed, once it's published, so that will be published as an FDIS. So, well, FDIS is the final draft before it's published. So it's final draft international standard. When that's published, the maintenance team responsible for that will put a stability date on the standard. Right. So they will say, okay, this standard is mature, is ready, and we think it will be fine for the next 10 years. So they'll put a stability date. Let's say it was published in 2017. The stability date will be 2027.
Okay.
If they feel that there's a lot of emerging technologies, if there's changes in other standards within the particular area, they might say, well, let's put a stability date with a shorter period on that. Let's give it 6 years because we think it will be necessary to update it within a shorter period of time.
And let's say, for instance, then, that this Chapter 41 gets updated in 2027. Mm-hmm. How soon after that, then, would we need to implement that into 7671, for instance?
So again, there's a bit of flexibility on this, and this is determined by the working group, actually, because then you're getting down to Senelec level, so there'll be a working group that will look into this. It's all about the parallel procedure, but we'll discuss that in another one completely. So the working group that's responsible for publishing that HD, they will stipulate on there when it needs to be implemented at a national level. Now, that can be anything from 3 to 5 years, depending on what the working group feel is necessary. And that is, again, why BS 7671 is updated on those regular intervals between 3 and 4 years, sometimes 5 years, depending. Unless we've got, quick fire amendments that we need to publish every 6 months. But so it's really based on the expertise of those working on the working groups to understand what's going on in the industry, possibly what's happening in other areas of standardization.
Because they can affect each other.
Exactly,
right,
yeah.
That makes
So,
sense. Okay.
I mean, a really good example of the most recent sort of coordination between different committees at IEC level is Joint Working Group 44, which is responsible for Chapter 82, so prosumers installations. Yeah. And then you've got MT1, which is responsible for fundamental requirements. So at IEC, that's Part 3, but in the UK, it's Part 1, 2 and 3.
3 together.
So there's been an international level discussions about system referencing conductors, and there's a new product standard, system referencing conductor switching device. Now, that appears in Chapter 82, but it relies on the general requirements to bring that particular part of the installation into play.
Right.
And also there's a product standard that's been developed. So there's 3 very significant committees working on one particular aspect, and stability dates need to be taken into consideration when trying to get that work coordinated.
Because that seems to me that they're trying to kind of catch up with something that's already out there. So are we talking in Sparky language? Are we talking about like a battery storage system that's going into an island mode? Is that the type of technology we're talking about?
So currently in the UK and a lot of standards around the world, it's not permitted to switch the main earth or the means of earthing into an installation. But it's also not permitted to combine 2 different types of earthing systems
together.
So if you have an island mode, which typically be on a TNS, and you have a PME supplied to your property, when you want to switch to your island mode, there needs to be a facility to separate those earthing systems, but to still provide a means of earthing for protective measures. So in order to achieve this, you have to switch that earth at some point.
Right.
So this has come to fruition within standards with the system referencing conductor switching device, which we could probably talk about. Completely separate subject for hours.
That's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And then finally, I used to get quizzed quite a lot when I was in the teaching and learning part of industry, that a lot of changes within 7671 are done by the IET. They want to make money out of a new book, etc. And the awarding organisations like City and Guilds want to make money out of a course and all the rest of it. But actually, we've just learnt that some of the changes in here are brought about because of changes to the harmonised documents and, other committees and other areas that happen at a high level that an ordinary electrician, designer, etc., wouldn't see.
Yeah, of course. So there's a lot in the mix here, and there's a huge amount of process that goes on, and it can span over over decades sometimes. With particular standards, it can take a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that everybody has an interest in this publication coming out. Obviously, encourages new training, new courses, and new business for electricians as well. It was one of the things when I was sort of running my own company. Whenever a version of the regulations came out, I thought, brilliant. I've got potentially an influx of work because things are changing, safety improvements are being sort of proposed within the new standard. But I have to say, for the vast majority of members on JPEL 64, and ourselves included as Electrical Safety First, the money aspect is very much a secondary, third, fourth sort of consideration. The primary at the forefront of everybody's mind is, we need to develop a standard that is fit for purpose. It addresses these emerging technologies so we can make sure as best as we can that the installations are safe to accommodate for these emerging technologies. It's really about the safety of the installation, the safety for consumers, the people that are using the installation. And the money aspect is very much a secondary. I mean, the IET is similar to the Electrical Safety First, are a charity, so it's there's a lot of time and effort goes into producing this, and typically any money that's gained from the publication of anything wiring regulated gets fed back into the system, and that's what provides the opportunity for organisations and charities like Electrical Safety First and the IET to send people onto these international committees to represent the UK view, to make sure that we're not being left out the loop when it comes to developing these requirements.
It's been a really insightful conversation. It's a pleasure to have you on board with Electrical Safety First, and looking forward to having more of these little chats and delving into other subject areas that maybe we could provide a bit of an insight for viewers and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a real pleasure to be here, and having been with the IET for over a decade, and with BEMA, to see a different perspective, a different side of the industry. But my heart belongs on this side of the industry, electrical safety and electrical installations, and very, very proud to be working with you guys. I'm back involved in the development of this standard and the associated guidance that we produce.
Yeah, and a lot of work to do.
Yes, never ending. It'll keep us going till retirement.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers, thank you.